Okay, so are you ready to do this? Are you ready to dive into 2 centuries of tech history with us?
I think so. Let's do it.
All right, you've been researching tech milestones, which is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff.
And we were going through the sources that you gave us, and
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Some really wild stuff.
some of this is really wild.
Yeah.
So get ready
I'm ready.
to have your mind blown a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Like for instance,
Yeah.
did you know that the idea for the barcode
Really?
came from doodling in the sand?
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
we're going to get to that.
Okay.
But before we jump ahead,
Okay.
let's rewind a bit.
Okay.
When you think of early computers,
Yeah, okay.
what comes to mind?
I think like room filling machines with punch cards, right?
Yeah.
Those old pictures you see.
Huge,
Yeah.
like giant things taking up a whole room.
Exactly.
What if I told you that the very first computers were actually people?
Oh, really? Like the term?
Yeah, the term computer originally referred to human beings, primarily women,
Wow.
who performed calculations back in the 1800s.
Okay.
These were the original number crunchers,
Wow.
vital to scientific research and engineering projects.
That's really interesting.
Women.
Yeah.
Hold on,
Yeah.
why women?
Why women? That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, simply put, economics played a really big role.
Okay.
Women were often paid less than men for the same work.
Oh.
So for employers, this meant they could get more calculating power for less money.
Wow.
It's interesting, though, how societal norms, even back then, influenced like the tech landscape from the very beginning.
Yeah. And it's kind of unsettling when you think about it.
Totally.
And speaking of women in tech history who deserve way more credit,
Yes.
Ada Lovelace.
Fascinating, yeah.
Light years ahead of her time.
Absolutely.
She was
Oh
brilliant.
my gosh.
Yeah.
So Ada Lovelace, she was a brilliant mathematician,
Yeah.
and she collaborated with Charles Babbage.
And he was the inventor of the difference engine
Right.
back in the 1840s.
Wow.
Now, the difference engine was this incredibly complex mechanical calculator.
Yeah, it was a big machine.
Yeah.
But she saw that its potential went way beyond just like crunching numbers, right?
She literally wrote what we would recognize today as computer programs.
Wow.
Like instructions that would allow these machines to perform really intricate calculations, like
really?
figuring out Bernoulli numbers,
Okay.
which even for mathematicians back then was some high-level stuff.
Wow. Very forward thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker.
Okay.
Her work was so ahead of its time that no one fully grasped its significance for nearly a century.
You kidding?
As a whole century passed
Wow.
before anyone understood what she had accomplished.
That's incredible.
Can you imagine?
Wow, that's wild, yeah.
It just blows my mind.
It really makes you wonder how many other just brilliant ideas have been lost to history because,
Yeah.
people weren't ready to like listen or just understand.
It just makes you wonder.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I
It
know.
speaks to like,
It really does.
the importance of fostering a culture where you're embracing different perspectives and recognizing potential, even when it's not obvious. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to this theme of ahead of their time,
Okay.
have you ever thought about how email came to be?
I mean,
You would think it was invented to replace snail mail, right?
yeah. You think it would be this natural progression from,
Right.
physical mail to this
Yeah.
digital form.
Exactly.
But it's so much more interesting than that.
Okay.
So the very first email was sent in 1971 by Ray Tomlinson.
Okay.
And he was an engineer working on ARPANET, which, was the precursor to the internet as we know it today.
Right.
And get this.
Okay.
It wasn't meant to replace postal mail at all.
Right.
It wasn't even like part of the thought process.
Okay. You have to tell me more.
Yeah.
What was the motivation
Okay.
behind that very first email?
Well, he just needed a way to leave a message for somebody on the network, but there wasn't a system in place yet.
Huh.
So it was really a solution that was born out of a very specific need, not some grand vision to replace physical mail.
So it's kind of like he invented the digital Post-it note.
Kind of, yeah.
And speaking of these seemingly simple ideas
Yeah.
with surprisingly significant impacts,
Right.
let's talk about the webcam.
Okay.
You will not believe
Yeah.
how this everyday gadget came about.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, so this one's a classic.
Okay.
You're probably not going to believe this, but
Yeah.
the webcam was invented because some scientists were tired of walking over to an empty coffee pot.
Wait, seriously?
I know.
Please tell me more.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It sounds like a joke, but it's true.
Okay.
So back in 1993, researchers at Cambridge University rigged up a camera to their coffee pot,
Oh my God.
and they streamed images on their internal network.
Wow.
So they could check if there was a fresh pot before making the trip to the break room.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Right.
So you talk about a relatable problem.
I know.
It's amazing how, like, such a simple idea,
I know, it's great.
born out of sheer convenience,
Yeah.
ended up having such a huge impact on how we communicate today.
Absolutely. And it really highlights how the path of technological adoption isn't always linear.
Right.
Like sometimes a good idea needs like the right context or supporting technologies to really take off.
Right.
Take video calls, for example.
Okay.
You might be surprised to learn that this concept existed as early as the 1920s.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
I would have thought that video calls were a much more recent invention.
Yeah, you think so, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is brand new. We have the technology now.
Yeah.
But no.
What happened?
Well,
Did the technology just not work back then?
I mean, the technology was obviously rudimentary, but it existed.
Right.
The problem was more about like practicality and cost.
Okay.
So the first public demonstration of a one-way video calling system took place in 1927. And while people were just amazed by the concept,
Right.
it was simply too expensive
Yeah.
and impractical for widespread use.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It reminds me of how long it took for things like flat-screen TVs and electric cars to become mainstream.
Totally.
The early versions were often too expensive or had limitations that made them less appealing than the existing options.
Exactly. And even when a new technology is objectively better than what came before,
Right.
it doesn't always guarantee success.
Right.
There are often other factors at play,
Yeah.
like social trends, marketing, or even just plain luck.
Yeah.
Remember the rivalry between Betamax and VHS?
Oh, absolutely. My family had Betamax,
Oh, really?
but everybody else had VHS.
Okay.
Didn't Betamax actually have better picture quality?
It did.
Yeah.
Betamax was developed by Sony,
Right.
and it was arguably superior from a technical standpoint.
Yeah.
Better picture quality, smaller tapes.
Right.
However, VHS ultimately won the video cassette format war.
It totally did, yeah.
Yeah. And there are a couple key reasons for that.
I'm curious, why do you think VHS ended up on top?
Well, JVC, the company behind VHS, was much more open to licensing the technology.
Okay.
This meant that more companies could manufacture VHS players,
Okay.
leading to lower prices and wider availability.
Right.
Plus, VHS tapes could record longer, which was a big selling point for people who wanted to record movies or sporting events.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it seems like practicality and affordability often trump slightly better technology,
It does.
at least in the consumer market.
It seems to.
It's fascinating how those factors can shape the trajectory of an entire industry.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which,
Okay.
there's this incredible anecdote from the early days of computing that just blows my mind.
Okay, what is it?
IBM once estimated that the world would only ever need 5 computers.
5.
5.
You're kidding?
Can you believe that?
I mean, in hindsight, it's so funny.
That big.
But like, wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, in the context of the time,
Right.
it's not entirely surprising
Yeah.
because back then,
Yeah.
computers were these massive,
Huge.
expensive machines,
Yes.
primarily used by governments and large corporations.
Of course, yeah.
The concept of personal computing was still decades away.
Right, right.
It's a good reminder of how difficult it is to predict the future of technology.
Oh, absolutely.
What seems groundbreaking one day can become obsolete the next.
That's true.
So how did we go from those massive,
Yeah.
room-filling mainframes
Right.
to the powerful computers we have in our pockets today?
I know.
It feels like a giant leap.
It really does.
Yeah. So we've got these smaller, faster computers, thanks to the transistor, but we've got a long way to go from there to smartphones we have today.
Right.
What were some of the other key milestones in that evolution?
Well, the next big leap came with the invention of the integrated circuit,
Okay.
or the microchip, as it's more commonly known,
Oh, right.
back in 1958.
Okay.
And instead of soldering individual transistors together, we could now create entire circuits on a single piece of silicon.
Wow.
And this paved the way for even smaller and more powerful computers, eventually leading to the personal computer revolution.
The personal computer revolution, right? And we can't talk about the rise of personal computers without mentioning
Yeah.
the Homebrew Computer Club,
Right.
which was
hugely influential.
just like a bunch of tech enthusiasts in the 1970s.
Yeah, a bunch of hobbyists and engineers.
And it was there that Steve Wozniak first showed off.
Wow.
his early Apple prototypes.
Really?
Can you imagine being a fly on the wall for that?
Oh, that would have been
That
incredible.
would have been amazing.
Just to see, like, the very beginnings of
Yeah.
what would become,
Oh my
uh,
gosh. Such
yeah,
a huge
a
thing.
global
Yeah.
phenomenon.
And it's just amazing how quickly things took off from there.
Yeah,
Suddenly everyone wanted a piece of the action.
right.
Microsoft enters the scene with MS-DOS.
Yep.
The internet starts to connect people across the globe.
Yeah.
And by the 2000s, it feels like the pace of innovation is just exponential.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just like
Yeah,
it's been
incredible.
new technologies and gadgets are popping up left and right.
It's really mind-boggling how much has changed in such a short amount of time.
Right.
We've seen the dot-com boom,
Yeah.
the explosion of mobile phones,
Right.
and then the smartphone revolution.
It's like,
It's unbelievable.
yeah. And it's not just the size and the power that's so impressive.
Right.
It's what we can actually do with these devices.
Exactly.
Remember what I said earlier about the Apollo guidance computer
Yeah.
and how much less powerful it was
Yeah.
than a modern smartphone?
It's incredible when you think about it.
It really puts things into perspective.
It really does.
That Apollo guidance computer was a marvel of engineering for its time.
Oh, absolutely groundbreaking.
But today's smartphones have trillions of times more processing power.
It's astounding. And this trend of like exponential growth shows no signs of slowing down.
It makes you kind of wonder
It does.
where we're headed.
I know, it's really exciting.
In just the past few years,
Yeah.
we've seen remarkable advancements
We have.
in artificial intelligence,
Right.
blockchain technology, and so much more.
And who knows what's next?
It's almost overwhelming to keep up with it all.
It can be a lot.
Every day there's a new headline about
Yeah.
AI writing screenplays or creating art.
I know. It's like every day there's something new.
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting at the same time.
I agree. It really makes you wonder what the next 200 years will bring.
It does.
If the past 200 years have been this transformative, we can only imagine what technological marvels await us in the future, you know?
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah,
It's definitely a lot to process.
it is.
As we're wrapping up this deep dive,
Okay.
is there anything that particularly stood out to you from all the research we've done on this topic?
You know, when you really step back and look at the grand sweep of tech history, it's the interconnectedness of it all that I find most fascinating. Like every innovation, every breakthrough builds upon what came before it,
Totally.
often in unexpected ways.
It's like that saying, we stand on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly.
We often take these technologies for granted, but
Yeah.
each one has a rich history of innovation and collaboration behind it.
It's true. It makes you really appreciate the ingenuity of the human mind.
Right.
And it reminds us that the future of technology isn't some predetermined path. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Right.
something that we are actively shaping every single day
Wow.
through our curiosity, our creativity, and just our willingness to embrace new possibilities.
That is a great point.
Yeah.
So to everyone listening,
Yeah.
the next time you pick up your smartphone, send an email or even just scan a barcode at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Take a moment to think about
Yeah.
the incredible journey that brought us here.
Absolutely.
It's a story of human ingenuity, perseverance, and this relentless drive to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, thanks for joining us
It's been a pleasure.
on this deep dive into 200 years of tech history. And we'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration into the world around us.
See you next.